I want to have a conversation that most podcasters either will not touch or handle so badly that they drive away half of their potential audience before the third minute. I want to talk about feminism, women, work, family, and what economic shift of the past 50 years actually did that to all of it. And I want to do it without anger, without blame, and without pretending that the honest version of this conversation is simple. Because it is not simple. And people who make it simple, either by dismissing the entire conversation as an anti women or by reducing it to culture war grievance, are not helping anyone understand what actually happened. Let me start with what I think is the most honest framing I can offer. There are two distinct things that have been called feminism over the past 50 years, and conflating them produces an enormous confusion. The first is economic feminism. Women needing to enter the workforce in large numbers because one income stopped being enough. In 1970, about 40% of married women in North America were in the paid workforce. Today, the number is above 70%. And here's the question you almost never hear asked. Why? Not why in the sense of women aspirations and capabilities. Those are real and I'm not minimizing them. Why in the sense of what changed economically that made a single income household unworkable for the average family? The answer goes back to episode 2, the inflation that quietly eroded purchasing power over 50 years, the housing costs that went from 3 times income to 10 times and beyond, the real cost of living that outpaces wages in every category that matters: housing, childcare, healthcare, education. The single income stopped being enough not because of any policy discussion about gender. It stopped being enough because the math was deliberately or at minimum neglected, allowed to break, or negligently. So what happened? The economy needed 2 incomes to produce the stability used to produce with one. And women who had been building education credentials and professional ambitions throughout the post-war decades entered the workforce. And that was in many ways a genuine expansion of human possibility. More talent applied to more problems, more perspectives in more rooms, more economic agency for more people. But here's the thing that nobody says clearly. When both parents have to work full time just to cover the basics, that is not liberation. This is economy extracting 2 incomes from a household that used to survive on one. The standard of living did not double when women entered the workforce en masse. What happened over time was that the 2 incomes became the new baseline. Housing prices absorbed the additional household income. Childcare became an industry that captured a significant portion of the second salary. The system recalibrated around the new normal. And now we're at the point where 2 incomes are required to do what one used to do. And many families cannot even manage that math. Elizabeth Warren, before she was senator, when she was a Harvard Law School professor researching bankruptcy law and consumer finance, wrote a book called The 2 Income Trap. Her argument was specific and documented. When women entered the workforce and household incomes rose, the cost of the things families most needed, particularly housing in the good school districts, rose to absorb that income. Families did not end up richer. They ended up with both parents working at the same or less margin than before. But now, with now with no backup. When one income was enough and one partner was not working, you had a financial reserve, a crisis fund in human form. When both incomes are required just to maintain the baseline, a single job loss or medical event or family crisis removes your entire margin immediately. That is economic feminism. That is a system failure that affected everyone: men, women, families, children, and it was produced by the same broken math we talked about in episode 2. The second thing, called feminism, is ideological. The cultural messaging, and it became very loud in 1990s and 2000s, has only intensified since that careers and identity and family is optional. The marriage is a patriarchy institution that constrains women. The decision to stay home with the children is a step backwards. That ambition should always be directed outward, towards professional achievement, towards independence, towards the kind of self-actualization that does not require commitment to another person or family. And here's where I want to be careful, because I am not saying the messaging is entirely wrong for every woman or that it was malicious in its intent. I'm saying that it produced a specific outcome that is now showing up in the data, and the outcome involves a real human suffering that the original messaging did not anticipate and did not currently honest about. A significant number of women absorbed that message, prioritized career and independence through their 20s and early 30s, and discovered in the mid to late 30s that the biological window for having children did not negotiate with the current narratives. They arrived at a point where they wanted what the message told them to defer: family, partnership, children, and found that deferring it had caused the message never warned them about. I have this conversation with women, not in the abstract, with real people. A colleague who built an impressive professional career and is now 42, single, and grieving the children she does not have with the honesty she can only manage with people she trusts completely. She's not a cautionary tale. She's a fully realized human being who made reasonable decisions inside the messages her culture gave her. And she's now paying a price that her culture is not yet honest about. I want to say something to the man listening right now, because I think this is important and I want to be clear about my position. What I just described is not an argument for going back to a world where women had no professional options. That world was worse. It is not an argument that women should not work or have careers. It is an argument that the cultural messaging we give an entire generation of women and men about what a life is supposed to look like was incomplete at the best and dishonest at worst. It did not account for human nature. It did not account for biology. It did not account for the fact that the things that longest happiness study in history says actually matter: committed relationship, deep connection, family, were being actively devalued in the name of progress that turned out to be the more complicated than the original pitch. Both the economic pressure and ideological confusion pushed in the same direction: away from family formation, away from early marriage, away from children, and toward the life organized around individual achievement, professional identity, and the performance of independence. The system benefited enormously from all of it. 2 incomes are more taxable than 1. More people working means more spending, more debt, more economic activity. A culture of individuals is more profitable than a culture of families. And the cost of that argument is paid not on any corporate balance sheet, but in specific human grief. We have been talking about it for the last half hour.